We have a wild agenda today. We had some price discovery over the weekend, and things are looking very bullish. We're going to tackle the reasons why. We're going to look at a whole host of different things, incredible movements in the markets. Everybody's flipping every which way. It's like the world from 4 or 5 years ago has ceased to exist, and it's a bizarre time to be alive. But before we jump into this wild agenda, let's start at the bottom right. Marty, you hanging in there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good. How you guys, man? What a great weekend, right?
Yeah, pretty wild.
Remember, I said all-time high on Monday.
Yeah. And CTO looks like you came from a wedding and took your tie off.
Exactly. I actually did. A friend of mine got married, but then I thought I should wear the shirt to pay respect to Bitcoin all-time high.
You're kidding. You were at a wedding today?
I was in a wedding. Yeah, a friend got married. They said yes, so that was good.
That is very bizarre.
Tuxedo on, actually.
It looks like what he should. I didn't mean to expose that element anyway. And Mando's back.
I'm back.
Deep Purple is back.
Yeah. I was away. I was in Korea and I was in Singapore for various different conferences. I would have actually tried to do what CTO did, but my flights were actually on Monday both days. But yeah, it's great to be back. Very, very bullish trip to Asia.
All right, we got a lot to get through. So many questions, so many concerns, so much bullishness too. We're going to talk about price discovery time. First of all, a little bit of good news is the whales seem to be done selling. This is a chart from Crypto Quant I saw this morning. And I mentioned that the whales surprisingly have sold more. They've taken more lifestyle chips than they normally do during a bull run. And now it's very clear they're done selling as we enter price discovery. And there's some crazy rumors flying around out there that we'll talk about in a minute. But that's the first piece of good news. We're not going to dwell on this because we don't care. We've got too much other stuff to get onto. Another cool chart is the S&P versus Bitcoin is down 88% since 2020, despite the S&P 500 being up 106%. This chart is getting the attention of TradFi. And TradFi are coming in fit, fast, and furious. Mando, what do you make of this?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think we've seen already, even this week, we saw JP Morgan come out and basically turn bullish on Bitcoin, say everything's being debased. They're actually calling for the debasement trade, which I think is pretty funny. To be calling for it at this stage, and that Bitcoin's the best one. Fair value is like 170K. Morgan Stanley came out this week and said, look, all our wealth advisors, you should start buying Bitcoin, 4% allocation. Feels like TradFi is starting to realize about the trade. Going back to the point before, which was like the whale selling, this was a really bullish trip to Asia. I did think there's a lot of very bullish things happening, but there was still like quite a lot of, let's say, Asian whales who I felt like we're talking about selling towards the end of the year just because of the 4-year cycle. It does make me think we might continue to underperform like gold, like where we should be for like global M2 or like the normal gold correlation for a little bit here, even though I think we're going higher.
Yeah. Madness. And you did hint on a couple of things. I'm going to ask Marty what he thinks about this TradFi revolution. First of all, we have this. Morgan Stanley came out, I think, yesterday, the day before. Yep. You should have a 2 to 4% allocation, 4%, unless you're all cash, which is completely wild. Then we have JP Morgan going bullish AF, 165K base target. These are the people that told you if you had purchased Bitcoin as an employee, you were going to get shit canned. Boom. Mm-hmm. This is another one of these crazy flippenings we're seeing. Citibank ups the ante, goes even higher than JP Morgan. Base case 181K. And they're pushing out the bull market into 2026, which we'll talk about in a little while too. And then this is from Simply Bitcoin from Rick Edelman. He says a $500,000 Bitcoin price is only a 1% allocation from global portfolios. Distill all this down for us, Marty. How wild is this?
Yeah, I mean, I call it institutional floodgates. I think the floodgates have opened. You've got the Morgan Stanley 4% allocation from being the biggest bear in the market. That's 16,000 advisors, guys. 2 trillion in assets. That is a massive floodgate. Calling it digital gold after calling it junk.
Morgan Stanley influenced 8 trillion in assets, by the way.
8 trillion. There you go. 8 trillion. Thanks for the correction. Then we've got Stripe filing for federal charter to mint its own stable coins. You've got the Walmart news. Did you see that?
Yep.
Walmart backing their OnePay, integrating crypto into its banking apps. Samsung expanding its Coinbase partnership for access, guys, it is all happening. The snowball has begun.
Yes, definitely. CTO, I mean, it's a lot to digest. TradFi, US TradFi coming fit, fast, and furious. And we know eventually the rest of the markets will come too. What do you see on the ground?
Yeah, so let's look on the charts here, because I think it's very interesting. And I think it's Bitcoin that starts looking cheap, even though we had this all-time high now. So recall this chart, then we switch to gold. Gold looks like this, guys.
Yeah. Bitcoin follows gold.
And if they didn't buy at the breakout at 2,000, okay, now gold is 4,000. That's double in gold. And then we look at stocks, also points up like this, straight line up, new all-time high, basically every single day almost. And also starts maybe feeling a little bit expensive. There's a lot of profit growth that's already baked in here now that has to come from AI in all companies, basically, for this to work out. And then look at this chart. Bitcoin starts looking cheap. It hasn't really run yet this past couple of months, like gold and stocks. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel that a lot of people should start thinking that maybe should take some profits from gold and stocks and put into this one that hasn't really run that much yet. That's my take on this. I was very happy to see the all-time high, even though it's like kind of still lagging from the run in both gold and stocks.
Yeah, it's wild. And I'm normally kind of conservative with my Bitcoin price predictions. But just looking at all the data over the last 5 weeks, I've become incredibly bullish. So much so, I became a top buyer for the first time in my life. I actually played a big options trade on iBit on Friday because of the wild options action. Somebody somewhere knew something was going on because people were buying thousands and thousands of $100 strike iBit calls. And Mando, you and I have been around long enough. When somebody goes in so hard, so out of the money, it means something is going on or they know of something. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we knew what was going on. We've been calling Bitcoin to go higher for a long time. But I do think that what CCO said there is starting to be picked up. When you start to see some of the big TradFi guys coming in and saying, hey, Bitcoin looks cheap here, this rotation, gold has had this run on the debasement, stocks are hitting all-time high. Last week, we got like murmurings of maybe stimulus checks coming out of the US suddenly. And it's like, okay, now it's time to really go after Bitcoin if it's underperformed. My gut was that still after this age trade, enough people were saying, no, I'm going to be selling in Q4. And like, I always sell 4 years afterwards. And these are big Bitcoin whales that you would still see some supply to get through. And that's basically what's happened. Like, if you look at what's happened over the last few months, it's been us approaching all-time high, and then some dormant whale comes in and sells like 10 billion Bitcoin, and that gets digested and it happens again. It's just this fight between the fundamentals, which are very, very strong for Bitcoin right now. Everything's going gangbusters, versus technical selling of people who have just traded the 4-year cycle.
What's completely wild about that, Mando, too, is the absorption by the ETFs and the treasuries. We'll get to that in a second. But this is something that really piqued my attention. Not only the crazy wild option action, but Matthew Siegel, the recovering CFA, I love that handle. Monday, 9:30 a.m. might be the first official shortage. Not financial advice, just might make sense to get some, because tons of Bitcoin are being removed from exchanges hand over fist. We have a record low. I wrote a paper on Saturday regarding the potential supply crunch that could happen. I looked at the OTC desks, and they are running desperately low. There was a lot of people that were on the phone with OTC desks. And the question is, could this happen, or is this the usual crap that we hear all the time? Like, oh, supply crunch. But literally, when you look at the dumpage by these long-term whales, and you look at the absorption, you've got the ETFs pulling in 50,000 Bitcoin sometimes in any given time period. It's completely wild. Marty, do you believe in the potential supply crunch theory? Are the OTC desks running low?
James, the Glassnode charts confirm it. Bitcoin on exchanges, which obviously is a metric that we need to question, like who reports, how do they report? But we've been watching it for a while. It's now at an all-time low. It's lower than it
Yeah.
was in 2020.
Yeah.
So that metric alone just means there is no more corn for sale. You've got
Yeah.
all this Mike Alford rumors from the OTC market. You've got the price going to all-time high. You've got balance on exchanges that are low. It appears finally we are reaching that sort of milestone, I think, and we will see change. Now, remember, everyone on the call, there are two ways for them to get your corn, right? And that's make the price go low and you panic sell, or to make the price go high and you greed sell. So just always remember, it doesn't just go down to get you to sell. It goes up as well. So hold your corn. This is nothing.
I did an April Fool's video, and I had this new token called Beatcorn. It was very funny years ago, and gotta pull that up again. Beatcorn. CTO, what do you make of all this madness? Or could a supply crunch happen? I know you and I have heard about this for years and years and years, but when people like Matthew Siegel come out and say, "Well, I'm hearing there is a lack of supply," you got Mike Alford as well saying it too. You've got the miners hodling, treasuries are stacking. Your meta planets and your MicroStrategies, digital asset treasury companies all over the place, buying more than the issuance and buying more than the actual whales can dump. And then your ETFs, you got TradFi coming in hard. JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Citibank, all pushing it on their customers. And we know that even a 1% allocation takes us to $500,000.
Yeah, I've also kind of been a little confused. Who is selling? Because we have the documented buying volumes, right? And it's huge from the ETFs, from Sailor, from wealth management, everything. So who is selling? And I felt that there are two possibilities. Either it's some kind of manipulation going on, that they try to orchestrate it down and then all of a sudden run it all the way up when the last optimist gives out. So that's one scenario. The other one is maybe what Mando talked about, that there are actually large holders that are selling large volumes because they just simply trade the 4-year cycle or something like that. And then also have to kind of remember, if they say that they will sell an end of Q4, maybe they sell 1 month earlier, right? You want to front run your friends generally. But I think one thing we can see, if I can show the chart again, sometimes you can get a little bit of a hunch. Like I said, for example, like I felt the last resistance is actually this level when we were down here, actually down here already. And then first time it couldn't get through the resistance. See here, right? It kind of turned there. And then the second time it went through. And then if you see the volume profile here on the right, I don't know if it's visible here. You see this volume here? That shows what price, how much volume has changed hands. And if we wait for it to update, you see that above this level, there was very little that had changed hands, especially before the breakout. So I felt that if we just get through that, this part here, it will probably run up to all-time high very easily because there isn't much volume traded above that. And it did. So I think one way that we can monitor what happens is to see if there is large volume building here. And that's, if you look here on the right now, you see that there has not been a lot of volume changing hands here. That's not like one whale went out and sold for 20 billion Bitcoin here and price held or something. No, there hasn't been much selling here. So it's kind of hard to predict, but we can definitely see when it happens. Like, is there large volumes building or large players selling or not? And right so far in this round, they have not done that. So that's one thing to keep in mind. On sometimes we can't predict what will happen, but we can definitely see if large players start selling. And so far they haven't really.
Yeah, there's an interesting question here from Jen Zod. Whoever Jen Zod is, I like the question. Who can believe that institutions are buying Bitcoin at 125K? Seriously? In just a few months, they can buy it for less than half of that. This is a perfect segue into our next topic. Are we going longer? And I want to remind people of a couple of things. And Mando, think about this too. You're probably familiar with the term window dressing, where portfolio managers dress up their portfolios to make it look attractive to investors and reports. So for example, They didn't have Tesla all year, and then they FOMO into Tesla in Q4. So at the end of the year, it looks like, oh, these guys are holding Tesla. It's a good portfolio. It's kind of, I call it portfolio cosmetics to create the impression of strong performance or prudent management, that type of stuff. People think TradFi are smarter than retail. They are not. Okay, it's like the highest IQ guy in the world last week saying, "I'm going all in on Bitcoin" at the top. You know, if he was the highest IQ guy in the world, he would have bought it 15 years ago. Okay, that's just a simple piece of fact. Everybody, do not believe that TradFi are ahead of you. The tables have turned since 2020, since we had the glorious COVIDians. We were locked down and had to find a way to make ourselves busy, so we all became degen traders. Mando, over to you. What do you think? Window dressing, TradFi? Do you believe TradFi will buy at 125K?
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't really know. Like, yeah, maybe you're hoping for a massive sell-off, and who knows? Like, I can never rule out some sort of horrific black swan, and stuff is looking extended, at least in macro. Like, stocks look very, very bought here, but it does feel like Bitcoin's got a very, very strong buyer base. Also, it has this like gold aspect to it, so that even if something catastrophic were to happen, people would go to buy Bitcoin, I think, because it would be like, this is a good correlation to things like gold, or it's a hedge sort of trade. My gut is that we're going to have a good Q4, maybe not as good as I initially thought, but I think next year it's looking very strong. Once people realize that we're going to move beyond this 4-year cycle thing, that's when people go like, oh God, like this actually could keep going. And if your one bearish take is that you're waiting for a 4-year cycle and that starts to evaporate, that's when you get real chase buying. And that's what I think we're going to see over the next 6 months. We're going to see some people, calling the top 4 years. We've had a really good run. And we see a bit of that on crypto Twitter, CT, like some people calling the top saying, it's been a great cycle. We can keep going. We can actually keep going. And when people realize that, that's when you get the real FOMO. Oh my God, the 4-year cycle's over. Bitcoin can just be up-only technology. And I think that's what we're going to see next year.
Exactly. And let's talk about this, because this is the top question right now. As technically we are maybe 8 weeks away from a historical top of the cycle, we're seeing so many signs that everything is falling apart. Everything we look at, the slow crunch up we've had, all the charts, all the metrics, funding rates, you name it. I put together this very short little list of how I believe we could run longer, i.e. the 4-year cycle will end and be turned into a 5-year cycle, or maybe even longer than that, out to 2026. As you, Mando, said a few weeks ago, we have a steady grind higher, very low volatility. We're nowhere near overheated. Sell pressure's gone. Big banks are going all in on crypto and telling their customers to allocate 2 to 4%. Treasuries and ETFs are pouring in cash. Real world assets and everything's moving on chain. Marty, you're next up. Bitcoin coin supply crunch could be real, and fiat is imploding. Just look at gold. I mean, this is a solid list, and now my odds of a 2026 bull run extension are now 42%, maybe nearly half soon. It's wild. Marty.
Yeah, I think that we've been narrating for a while now that the world is moving from a debt-based currency to a hard asset-based currency using Bitcoin and gold. And we even see the Russian Vladimir Putin's right-hand man, Anton Kobikov, right, on a month ago, said in a speech that he believes the US is plotting to use cryptocurrencies, particularly USD-backed stablecoins, to devalue and effectively reset its massive national debt. This claim came during an Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok. So it's very clear that this is no longer just, Bitcoin is being traded by whales. It's a cycle. This is a systemic monetary policy shift. And those people that don't accept that are going to be punished. This is no longer a cycle like we know. This is going up, guys. It's following money supply. Literally today, it hit exactly where it should have hit, 125, based on the 111 trillion money supply. And money supply right now is at 114 trillion. I just
want to call out this idiot in the comments here. Seattle Paddler. James is calling for a super cycle in 2021. No, you're confusing that with Dan Held, not me. Okay, so screw you. I just want to, people are just get people confused, and I understand we all look the same. Yeah, so
you look nothing like.
Yeah, exactly.
So also, you saw the UK lifted a ban on ETF access today. Is that true, Mando?
I believe so, but I'm just disappointed in the UK in general. Like, my view, having worked in the city for many, many years, is that, and anyone from the UK kind of knows this, financial services is a huge, huge bit of global GDP, of the UK GDP. To be this far behind on crypto, which has been one of the major financial innovations of the last decade, and now only being dragged into better regulation because the US is basically forcing it to, so that there's some sort of parity between US and UK financial systems, is kind of embarrassing. Like, this is only happening because Trump went to the UK and said, guys, you need to shift your policy pretty quickly here. And the current Labour government, I don't think, was particularly pro-crypto. So now I think they'll move quicker than the EU, but they're just so far behind now already. It's kind of nuts.
Actually, is it too early in the conversation to talk about more flippening and how the EU is changing? Or does it belong here? Maybe we'll park that to the end because we've got some other stuff that we need to cover. Now let's take the other side of this story. What could bring us down? What potential gray swan, CTO? Think about this one. So we know we're being kept afloat by the ETF flows. ETF flows are wild. They're buying all of the new issuance and a lot more, and the miners are hodling, etc. Then you got the treasuries. There's a very close, what I've been looking at for years, there's a very close correlation of ETF flows to actual price. It's to the tune of between 72 and 85%, depending on the week, depending on the volume, depending on how much is bought in what time frame, and how quickly it goes up. If TradFi comes in and the ETF flows continue, we keep going up. But the corollary is also true. If the ETF flows dry up, we tank. So if there's a tariff tantrum or something like that, we can go straight back to $75,000. CTO, any gray swans on the horizon that you see right now that could take us down or make people nervous?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with the ETFs. I think it goes both ways. Like, of course, if there's large inflows, the price tends to go up. But I think that, and vice versa. But I think there's also the other way around. Like, if someone else is selling, they panic, and the ETF holders are indeed selling. So it also goes that way. And I mean, could someone drive price so far down that there is an absolute panic? ETFs start taking out their money, and there's like a selling frenzy, and price dumps to impossible levels. I mean, everything is possible with Bitcoin. Could always happen, but it's not my main scenario here. I feel that as long as we hold above maybe 112K support, it's bullish. So I'm not going to worry about those scenarios unless we start breaking support. So that's my take on it. Is it possible? Everything is possible. Is it something that I worry about right now? No, because trend is up, we're above support, we break through resistance, we're making new all-time highs. But if that situation changes, okay, then we start looking where it could bounce. But I don't feel we're there now.
Well, I just heard in the comments as well that silver just made a new all-time high as well. So we've got, as Marty said, it's a hard asset-based world now. We're getting away from debt into hardness, and everything is flying. Palladium, silver, gold. It's only a matter of time before TradFi now are waking up to the Bitcoin digital gold 2.0 narrative, and that we now have 4 new marketing departments. We have JP Morgan, we have Morgan Stanley, we have Citibank, and what's the 4th bank I'm forgetting? One day Wells Fargo will come in, and others, maybe some European banks. I think BBVA in Spain, is that correct, Mando, last week? Exposed 24/7 Bitcoin crypto trading to 70 million customers across Europe. I think it's the 2nd biggest bank based out of Spain. It's just wild, all the stuff that's happening.
Black swans, I think it's just going to be supply and digestion. That's what it will be. This is what we've continued to see. Old Bitcoin wallets selling into TradFi bids, which just means it just takes a little bit of time. Other than that, the only real one I can kind of feel like, maybe the midterm elections next year, people start to freak out that, if that doesn't go the right way, or you see a movement in either of the, or like it looks like it's going to be a movement in either of the houses, then maybe people freak out that you're going to see a repeal of a bunch of this sort of stuff. But I feel it's tough to think of like a really bad black swan here for Bitcoin.
I mean, in my opinion, there's a couple of. I'm very bullish. I think there's an 80% chance that this runs probably till 2028. My only problem is I believe very intensely in the 100-year cycle. And if you remember in the late 1920s, that's basically 2020 was 100 years before that. There was the beginning of that stock market bubble, very similar to what we're having now in crypto and stocks, which led to that 2029 stock market crash where they, banks were over leveraged, people were over leveraged. It's a very similar scenario to now. And that's literally 100 years ago. If you look at today, 2024 is when the pump started. Here we are in 2025, 2029 was the crash. It just feels eerily common, very similar to a 2029 crash, which a lot of people have already said is sort of Pico top 2029, 2030. So that's my only concern, is that we're creating just a massive debt bubble. But I think it's a very slim chance. I think it just rhymes. It's not the same thing. In my opinion, Binance is the biggest risk. I think we should talk about Binance. I mean, their BNB pump on very little volume to where it is now. It's clearly they're on a run to try and beat XRP's market cap or something, but it's very artificial, and who knows why. Are they doing it before market structure? Do they know regulations are coming? They're sending hundreds of Bitcoin every hour to Wintermute right now to suppress the price. It's all very weird. So in my opinion, Binance is our problem child.
Yeah, in fact, CTU, you had a very interesting video last week. You want to hammer on what Marty is saying about Binance and market manipulation and suspicious things that are going on?
Yeah, so can bring up this chart here.
Hang on a second. I've got to remove one to add another. Hang on. All right. There we go. Okay.
We shared it on the previous episode. So the observation, this is Solana market cap divided by BNB market cap. And the observation was that each and every time that ratio hits 100% or 102%, every single time price gets slammed down like this. See it here? Like every single time. And last time was mid-September. And 3 times only in the past 2 years, it got a little bit higher, went up to 130%. But then shortly after, slam down. And it gets slammed down quite far, either to 79% or 69%. So that was a shocking observation almost. This is not random when it starts looking like this. So how is it possible? Yeah, how is this possible? And actually, the staking rewards from, even though Binance is the biggest validator, the staking rewards from Binance alone is not enough to sell this down. But if taking all the stakers, it's a lot. It's a lot of Solana being generated by the stakers compared even to the treasury companies that have bought a lot of Sol. So at these volumes from the treasury companies, it's still the stakers that have the bigger power, and perhaps explaining this. And the good thing with the realization that it cannot be Binance alone, then it means that they could also change their strategy one day. I mean, if it's only Binance, they will probably stick to that strategy, right? It's their own coin. Why not defend it? But if it's a bunch of people, they could change their mind one day. And instead of suppress it like this, decide to drive it in the other direction when the last person has given up. And that was very interesting. So I feel that the moment this behavior changes, that is an incredible risk-reward opportunity. One of the best maybe in the crypto market when this behavior changes. And we can see it very clearly here. They can say all they want, but here we see exactly what's going on.
Yeah, interesting, because there was also a report, I think, by one of the big crypto rags that Aster is falsely reporting volume.
Mm-hmm.
You heard that, Marty?
Oh, yeah. I follow all of it.
And Aster is owned by Binance. So it's all, they're just moving the pieces around the board. Let's talk about another quick topic. One, people are concerned. They kind of missed the boat. We're getting into the dangerous euphoric time. Mando, you've seen this before. When we get into price discovery, price starts melting up. We get Omega candles and $10,000 days, and people get extreme FOMO. What is the best way to play this? Like, it's kind of too late for people to buy spot and get a big return. But, there are other ways that I like to play. What would you recommend here for upside capture on Bitcoin or other assets? Perping, short dated calls.
There's calls and there's perps, right? But none of them are going to be that perfect. I think with perps, you can go on a good run, and then one trade just wipes you out. So I think if you're going to use more leverage, just know that I don't know what percentage of winning traders are on Hyperliquid, but it's something very small. It's something like 5 to 10%. So I think you got to know that it's a dangerous game to trade with perps or even with options. But yeah, if you want to have some volatility, I think Bitcoin, those are the obvious things with Bitcoin. I think right now Bitcoin's kind of settled in there. Like I said, I don't think we're going to have some crazy upside. I don't think we're going to like 200K by year end. But I think the downside is now capped. That 108K level is like, we're not going below that. So I like trades there where you can still capture the upside, but your downside feels like it's slightly capped.
Yeah.
In altcoins, I mean, I've been more bullish on BNB. I've been saying it. Remember, I said that, look, I was looking at Polymarket and I saw that line, which was that CZ was going to get a pardon by the end of the year. I still think that. I think BNB is going higher. I think, and that was the sense I got from Asia as well. The sense that I got from Asia was that all of these trades, these sort of like, Aster or these other BNB DeFi things that have been rocking off recently are basically them trying to do a non-KYC version of Binance. It's not a DeFi play as much as it is they lost a bunch of whales to Hyperliquid after the DOJ investigation, and that now this is their olive branch to win them back. And you basically saw that over the weekend. They got called out because they're basically rerouting all of their order book through Aster. So it allows people to do non-KYC trading with similar sort of liquidity. So I think they can. This is going to be a BNB season that lasts a little bit longer. I think he'll get his pardon, and I think this is going to be like the opposite of what Coinbase has done with Base, where like they kind of champion, but they don't. Binance will champion one thing in DeFi for each of the sectors. So they'll have one for a stable coin. They'll have one for perp and spot trading. They'll have one for lending. They'll have one for maybe token generation. And I think they're going to pump it. I do think BNB is going to still be a very strong trade until year end.
And perp DEX volume is going wild as well. And we haven't even seen Q4 yet. So I think they're in the right place. I think there was very, very good input there, Mando, as well. Let's, before I forget as well, links below for all these legends. We all should be very grateful for all of us being together. We're all streaming on our own channels. This is now the place where you figure out what's happening next in crypto. And our track record has been pretty good. There's some other crazy stuff happening out there in the markets. One is the ETFs for Solana are coming up. That's just not a matter of if, but when. And many people believe in the coming days or weeks, definitely before the end of this month. Is that still true, Marty?
Oh, yes, 100%. Spoke to Nick at Solana Foundation. Everything's going well. It's just a matter of days. They obviously can't tell you when. I thought the most interesting thing, though, in the Solana world was that it was 00 and that no action letter from the SEC. I don't know if people are aware, but this 00, which is a sort of layer 0, a physical network for high-speed blockchain transactions, went mainnet last week and launched their 2Z token publicly. But just before that, they were the first new Paul Atkins SEC project to get a no action letter before they went live. That is unprecedented. That basically means you don't require to be a regulated and surveilled security. It's the first sort of message that crypto is no longer considered by default a security, which is a milestone.
Yes.
And it went right under the radar. I thought that was pretty cool. But that's a big Solana news. This 00 went live. They have, I think, 25% of the stake now running on 00. Remember, 00 is Fire Dancer and Jump Trading. But yeah, 9 Solana ETFs are about to come out. Obviously, there's suppression around that because they're all going to have to buy their baskets and they don't want to buy high prices, but it's going to happen. I think it's an obvious trade. Now, people that want to catch it, obviously, you don't want to buy the top of Solana with your entire bag. You can do things like 2x leverage, very low leverage on Solana with a liquidation level of $120, $140, which I don't think it's ever going to go. And if it does, we're in bigger trouble. So there are ways to realize this opportunity without buying the top, which you can see at 236 right now. So you would be buying literally the top.
And Marty, as well, you've
ahead.
seen the digital asset treasury companies front running the ETF launch.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
A good question here from
100%.
Crypto Seed Johnny. Government shutdown, guys. Does it postpone the ETFs? Now, the government shutdown, as far as I know, shuts down non-essential services like parks and stuff like that. But the ETF, as far as I understand, is still running. Is that correct, anybody?
What I saw in Eleanor Turret's post is that the SEC is down right now.
Okay.
In regards to new approvals. So it, may affect the approval status of these ETFs. That's what I've read.
Okay. Well, meantime, the market's
I don't
still rolling.
know if it's a coincidence, James. I'm not a big tin hat guy, but it feels like we get all-time high and massive $4,000 Bitcoin pumps when the government shuts down. Are they doing the financial system transition whilst it's shut down? Is that why it's shut down? Like there's a lot of conspiracy theories around this.
And DCA Pump just arrived. We got over 125K, which is kind of exciting too. Now, one other piece of math that I did was, if you imagine we have anything near the ETH ETF flows into Solana, the multipliers go wild because of the amount that's staked, the digital assets, the treasury companies hoovering up all the tokens, etc. It could be completely nutty. I won't even tell you what the multiplier is because it's crazy. But do you expect a pump, Mando, from the ETFs when they do come in the next couple of weeks?
I think this is going to be a quicker start than all the previous ETFs. Like, it feels as though at least some of the wealth managers are now on board. It still takes a while. Like, Morgan Stanley is only just telling its wealth advisors you should start pitching Bitcoin, which means that this still takes a little bit of time with these. But I think this will be quicker out the gate. Solana looks the strongest for sure. Like, it's got the most knowledge kind of by TradFi. You have a number of different figures now with the DATs who've kind of pitched it. So I think Solana's going to have the strongest ETF here. I still, as I've said before, I think Solana, to me, will have a really strong next year. I think the ETFs will really start to pick up next year.
And I apologize, I forgot to include it in the deck, but one of the guys, I can't remember who it was, somebody from VanEck or somebody else, is that everything TradFi is going to be tokenized, RWA'd, etc., on one chain, and that chain is Solana. And in fact, we had Biddle come. The Biddle was the BlackRock RWA, basically tokenization of their money market fund. They started on ETH, and about 2 weeks ago, they just pivoted to Solana.
We're flying, guys. We're flying on crypto right now. Prices are flying. Just a little side note, James, before you continue. I did a little research. Corporate treasury holdings of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana right now. Corporate treasuries own 5.1% of Bitcoin supply, 3.2% of Ethereum supply, and 2.9% of Solana supply. And then when you look at ETFs, 7.4% of Bitcoin supply held by ETFs or their clients, and 5.3% of Ethereum, and 0.03% of Solana because there is only Rex. So if you just equate that to 5% and do the math, that's $320 Solana.
Yep. In fact, it's great. Very good point, and thank you for sharing that. This takes us to the other thing that people are concerned about is the digital asset treasury companies. Should people be buying spot, or what edge do things like digital asset treasury companies like MicroStrategy have? And there's a whole bunch of stuff. First of all, you got to look at a couple of things. The three big things that I look at, and I've been in MicroStrategy since September 2020. But a couple of things. The MNAV is a big factor. The other thing is the impact of what I call a sovereign put. And that is, if somebody needs to build a big bag of Bitcoin fast, you want to get $650,000 Bitcoin, you can't just go to market and buy that. Mando, you know what would happen. Imagine I hand you a couple $100 billion. I say, Mando, go grab me 650,000 Bitcoin. What would you do?
Yeah, you'd have to go to some of the bigger players like this
You'd have to buy MicroStrategy. Exactly. So that puts a price, a floor under the actual asset and their bag. So there'll always be a NAV premium until the bear market hits and everybody has to be forced to sell everything. Then you get NAV premium go to zero. But the other thing is as well, each time they buy, you get more Satoshis per share, which is another tailwind. So people think, yes, the proxies have gone through a hard spot lately, but they're still alive and kicking. And just what you said, Mando, as well. No, Marty, that we're so early in DATs for Solana, and they're already almost the size of Ethereum, which is wild. And we haven't even begun yet, too. So there's one other quick topic. I'm gonna talk about a guy that there's a lot of charlatans in the space of crypto, and this piece of news actually elevated my heart a little bit. This is Charlie Lee. And he comes out after putting 12 or 13 years of blood, sweat, and tears into his Litecoin. I see Mando, you doing a funny face. He comes out and he's extremely humble. He said, you know what? I should never have bothered. I should just bought Bitcoin and held it, kept it quiet, and just never have lost all that stress, all the blood, sweat, and tears of managing Litecoin. Mando, you obviously heard the story going by your facial expression. What did you think? It was very humble of him. And I always say great leaders find their humility.
Yeah, I don't know. I see Benjamin Cowan going toe for toe with the Litecoin community on the timeline, and I don't know if I want to get involved in this, but I think just bring up the Bitcoin versus Litecoin chart, and I think you'll see why.
CTO, can you do that?
I can do that. I just have to say one thing. If I thought to check it first before I say, but as far as I recall, wasn't it Charlie Lee who sat in the HODL t-shirt and then turned out he had sold all his Litecoin at the top in 2017-2018 cycle? And then he said that he did it for the community.
Of course. That's
so,
like the ETH Foundation said last week. Did you see that when they sold like 1,000 ETH? They said they were testing out DeFi.
Yeah, exactly.
The power of
okay,
DeFi.
so LTC, BTC. Let's check how it went.
Sound like 99% and down 99%.
Because it was really high up here in the 2017 cycle, so it probably sold somewhere there. Okay, we have to switch to weekly candles here.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah. Here we see it. So here is Litecoin versus BTC from the beginning, and you can all see that it's pointing in that direction. So this is from 2013 to 2025. But I think for Charlie Lee, personally, as I understand, it was probably pretty successful because he sold his coins here.
Well done, Tom.
Charlie. But what I thought, and this goes into the whole psychology of maybe can people be charlatans and then can they become good people again? Marty?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a very strong quality.
That's what they want to watch.
I think changing your mind is one of the most beautiful qualities of a human race, and we've lost that. People have become so binary and tribal. Once they believe something, they like go to the grave with it. When we should be open to changing our minds, and I agree with you. I respect him heavily for that, for what he did today by saying that. And I change my mind often. You should change your mind.
I have to show the USD chart also, guys. Can I get one more minute on this?
Yeah.
Open Door just announced you can buy homes with Bitcoin. Jeez, that's news.
So he allegedly sold them in near the top in 2017. That was up here. And then after that, it dumped 93%, I think, something like that. And it's still down since then by 70%.
Wow. Even XRP outperformed. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about another big thing. I've been in two narratives since the very beginning, Bitcoin and Tesla. It's reflected in my positions, reflected in content, etc. We are on the cusp of something huge here. We are late in the bull market, but we've discovered that the bull market could continue forever. But then at the same time, we have another revolution happening, which is wild. It's called AI, and the leader in generalized world AI is Tesla. So I believe everybody should have positions in both, just in case one goes to the moon, and they both will probably go to the moon, as long as you have enough time. This is the key thing about patience. But we have this weird phenomenon right now. Whoops, sorry. Before we get to the big story, and this is very, very important because this sets the stage for not only how you position yourselves, but also who you trust. So this is Google Trends, Bitcoin versus AI. It's a couple of things you can determine from this. One, AI is completely on fire. All TradFi is calling for a bubble. It's not a bubble because it's the first time ever it revolutionizes everything, and it's going after the biggest TAM in the world, which is labor. Second thing, retail has not arrived in Bitcoin. Mando, what do you make of this chart? I've been saying for years that ever since the ETF came and MicroStrategy's been there, it's a treasuries, it's an ETF game. It's not a retail game. Is retail absolutely still not interested in Bitcoin despite the pumps?
I think it's now looking a little bit like retail likes 10x gains. So I like if you go and you speak to Twitter, even CT, which is the core users of crypto, I think Ansem is one of the most well-known people. It put out a poll today, but what percentage of your portfolio is Bitcoin? 50% said 0, which tells you that like a lot of people who even are in crypto every single day do not own Bitcoin. So it is now moving into a bit more of an institutional play, or the sort of play that you have in your pension fund or in your 401k or some sort of asset manager buys for you because it's not a 10K trade, which I think is a good thing, and also simultaneously kind of a bad thing if you think of some of the network effects of that. So I think we will continue to see, particularly over the next 4 years, retail awaken to crypto. Whether they go all into Bitcoin, I don't know. Like we're in too much of a degen world. Just going back to the whole Tesla thing, though, like I think you should get your flowers a little bit here. Like the Tesla trade by yourself has been incredible, particularly more recently with the whole Trump versus Tesla fight, and it went all the way down, and everyone was calling for the top. Now, if you look at what he's doing with XAI and Colossus and the sheer compute power he has, like it is looking like one of the most slam dunk trades out there. Like everyone is waiting for pullbacks now in Tesla because he is just so far ahead, it seems like, in some of this infrastructure war when it comes to AI, and Tesla's going to be one of the major winners of that. So
in fact, this is the weirdest thing ever, because never before in my lifetime, over 35 years looking at stocks, have I seen a roadmap to a 10x. You mentioned 10x. DGens want 10x. His compensation plan is a 10 to 20x, and he will execute. Heaven forbid nothing bad happens in the world, etc. We have a roadmap to how a stock is going to 10x from here. But at the same time, you could argue, say Bitcoin's 100K, that's also going to 10x. And this is a calculus. It's like you got two really good things at your fingertips that are going to 10x for the next 5 years. How do you play it? Do you rotate it? Do you get clever, or you just build positions? That's the $1 million question.
Tesla's the most obvious to me out of the Magnificent Seven here, in my opinion. It was at that time, and I think you got like he was getting called out for politics, and a lot of people sold because of the politics. And I think you called out the man as the engineer, and he is beating all the other Mag 7 at infrastructure. That's the key here. All these other Mag 7 companies, they were SaaS companies, and he's come out as going like, I'm an engineer. I'm now going to build the biggest data center out there, and I'm going to destroy all the competition in it, and that's what's going to drive the power of my AI and the bets all coming off that with regards to robots and cars and everything. And that was a great call, and I think he's not unassailable, but he's the best engineer.
Exactly. Marty, back to coding and your coding background in the past. We have Grok Code and Grok Code Fast. They are now pulling over 2 trillion tokens. The number 3 player is doing 300 million. While Grok has just, when it comes to AI and code, Grok Code is just absolutely, in the space of 3 weeks, wiped the table. Just what Mando said, wiped the table. How is that possible for a change to happen so fast?
I mean, it's that good. It's just that good. Remember that we have fantastic investment in the AI infrastructure. I mean, you saw today AMD and OpenAI announced a massive 6 gigawatt announcement as well. So there's Tesla, AMD. We saw Oracle get involved. Everybody is going all in at that level. But what's been missing is the glue, the coding, the institutional adoption of AI coding. Like, how do we actually write agents? How do we actually implement it into our code bases? And that is starting. And I think the Grok code is literally the beginning of it. Elon Musk is clearly seen an open gap there, and he's taking advantage of it. And this plays into things like Sui's Move programming language and other, advances in programming languages. There's going to be an institutional adoption of AI code, probably going the next 6 months to a year, like you've never seen before, as all of these infrastructures open up to, all that usage, that adoption. And companies will be able to actually build AI agents into their tooling, and we will actually see the layoffs. We will see the implosion and erosion of the workforce, which we've always been talking about. So it's a good and a bad thing. Like, once again, what are people going to do? They're going to get laid off. But obviously, if you're in Tesla stock or AMD stock or Oracle stock or anything involved, NVIDIA, you're going to see a massive pump, I think. So it's an interesting time, but it's happening, James. It is happening.
Well said. CTO, again, back to your technology and your era digitalis and everything else. This week, just last week, the top 4 employers in the United States, top 4 employers, companies like Accenture, Walmart, etc., have all said over the next 5 years they're not going to hire any more people. In fact, they're going to cut labor force and they're going to double down on AI. What does this mean for the world?
I think it means exactly what we have talked about, us 4 here now for, 2 years. It's going to be massive changes. And I think everyone, perhaps us included, we still underestimate how big change this will be. It is like going from agriculture to the industrial revolution, guys.
100%.
And, yeah, exactly. And many of those jobs are not coming back. So I think, from a society from a humanitarian perspective, it will be difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people who have great jobs today, driving a nice car to a nice office, earning a lot of money, living in a great house, they might be replaced by a piece of code that costs like $10 a month. Unfortunately, that is the truth. I think everyone here listening to this channel need to stop learning skills and start building assets, because assets is what AI cannot replicate. It cannot replicate assets. The most obvious form of asset is, of course, financial assets, but there are also other assets that are not possible to replicate, like trust, or audience, or network. For example, it cannot be easily replicated. But so you need to start building assets, because this is happening, guys. The big companies will probably increase profit because they can get more done with a lot fewer people at much lower cost and higher quality. Because it's not only cost, it's like also faster and does less mistakes. And it's going to get exponentially better. That's what's so difficult to understand. Like, is it 2 years ago or something that we had those like Will Smith spaghetti eating videos? And now 2 years later, like the video generation tools that are coming out now is just unbelievable. And it's just 2 years. And then continue that exponential growth, all the tools like Grok or ChatGPT and so on, like, remember how much better they've gotten month by month almost, and year by year. That acceleration will continue because they get even better. They get bigger and better data centers. Elon is building like bigger data centers. It's going to continue like that, and it's happening really fast, and it's happening right now. So yes, profits will increase in the companies. They will hire fewer people, and everyone better start building assets.
Exactly. Be a capital allocator, as Ride here says, right beside. A very good point. Now, we have one last piece of shocking news, which should take nobody by surprise. And I always say, whatever the government tells you to do, do not do it. They're all psyops. We have this massive Orwellian, as the Orwellian corner, the WEF flip. You got puppets, Ursula von der Leyen, who apparently runs the EU, but she's never been elected. I don't know how she got into that job. I'm wondering but maybe that could be Era Digitalis career move, is just run Europe, just get yourself voted in without a vote. Then you got Mark Carney, the guy running Canada, WF guy too. These were all Green New Scam people. Energy bad, shut down the nuclear, let's go windmills, all that type of stuff. This happened over the weekend and this morning, and it's a very sneaky U-turn on saving the planet. Canada's new prime minister is saying, screw green, we're just going to go shale oil, gas will become an energy superpower, crank up fossil fuels, blah, 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 heat this earth. And I can't make this up. And then at the same time, unelected European boss Ursula, WF buddy of Carney, is now hyping AI as a job-boosting miracle in a speech over the weekend, even though she admits it'll wipe out millions of regular jobs and suck up triple the energy by 2030, clashing with the green power scam. This, everybody, just what was the old expression? Don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. Mando, have you ever seen anything like this?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. The climate change one is an interesting one. I think the obviously the war with Russia and Ukraine kind of destroyed any green hopes in Europe. And then in Canada, obviously there's been clashes with the US. But in general, I think one of the main drivers for this, again, is AI. Like, people realize that if you distill it down to its base need, it's energy. And suddenly we need a way more energy than we thought we did. And there is a hope that these technologies will then be able to fix many of the issues that we have already. So again, Europe is in a bad spot because they don't have energy independence, and they don't have a vast amount of energy supply. So they're going to have to turn this around. Same with Canada. Canada has a ton of energy, but seemingly chose green policies against it. So I think AI is going to be a big driver of that. And then the AI stuff in Europe, I mean, I just don't really know. Like, something tells me that in France, they're not going to let AI take their jobs. So I don't really see AI dominating the European labor market. I just see Europe is drifting further away from, let's say, efficiency.
Yeah, CTO, I'm going to go to you next.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, because the bizarre thing here, I just learned that there is no European company left in the 25 biggest companies. Top 25. Zero from Europe.
And the last one, by the way, that was made handbags. just for the record. Purses.
Yeah. Exactly. And then at the same time, okay, so how to fix that then? Okay, so then the AI is coming. Now is the opportunity, right? No, like, let me get. So Apple launched new
AirPods. Yeah.
With live translation features and things like that. Nope, not in Europe. In Europe, cannot use this one. So if you buy the new AirPods 3, live translation is not available in Europe because we made some regulations, so Apple can't launch it.
I did not know.
Sora 2 comes out. Like, everyone, the whole internet, the whole X is taken over by Sora videos. Nope, not in Europe, not available for Europeans because there's so much regulation that OpenAI just said, like, forget about Europe, it's not available for Europeans. All the AI tools that are coming out, every single one, nope, available for everyone except in Europe. And that will really help the European competitiveness, right? So, I mean, on one hand, maybe they feel AI is happening, but they're not willing to put any action behind the words. New regulation, more regulation, so that people can't use the tools. I think never before in history there's been such a disadvantage to have a European business as it is today. Not only from capital raise, but from regulation perspective. And, it becomes like a joke with all these tools coming out. Disabled for Europe. And I feel that, unfortunately, this is not even moving in the right direction yet. It's still getting worse by the week. Now, what are they debating now? Chat control. Okay, so all the messaging apps like WhatsApp and everything, they have to screen everyone's chats first before they encrypt it, which kind of defeats the whole point with end-to-end encryption. Like, if you unlock the end-to-end encryption, then it is not encrypted. They don't understand that that's going to get hacked. It's like a massive security holes. So, and government will scan everyone's messages before they send them. And I mean, all these things is not they haven't got it yet, and I think perhaps it has to get worse before it gets better. That's my take.
I mean, just for the facts, the number 25 company in the world is ASML Holdings. In my community, we've been trading that stock for a while. It's out of Holland. If you don't know who they are, they pretty much own all the photolithography machines that TSMC, Samsung, Intel, all of them use to make microchips. So they have a huge dominant factor, and I think that's part of it. I think that is like the golden goose once again of the EU, is they have that technology in Holland and they're going to use it. But the point I like to make, firstly, guys, we all four of us have been calling this for a year. Okay, so Ursula Andrews and the EU are a year behind. We've been saying, what is going to happen? What are people going to do when their jobs get taken away? Well, they've realized it. Now, the problem is that I think the EU specifically are all about control. And I think they've realized AI is also ability, and crypto, abilities to control their citizens in a way bigger way than climate change. So this plays perfectly into their Orwellian card. Exactly. And so be very wary of that.
I tweeted, funny, Marty, I tweeted that a couple of days ago, right after Ursula said we're pivoting to AI. I said they're pivoting to AI so they can run digital IDs and CBDCs better and monitor performance and movements of people. Now, the other thing that people have to be aware of, people say, oh, it's Europe, it's Canada. It's everywhere. It would be in the US as well if Trump was not in the office. And I want people to be very aware of that, because all of these globalists had the same plan. Okay, we happen to be lucky enough to break free, but that could all change in a couple of years. So everybody be very aware, become capital allocators, start thinking about, start being paranoid. I always say ABP, always be paranoid, because crazy stuff is happening around the world. What a depressing theme. Give us some good news to end on a positive note. Mando, make us happy. Come on.
I still love living in the EU. Like, it's still a good place to live, but it's the policies are kind of funny. Asia for me was just super bullish. Like, I think what you're starting to see is TradFi meets crypto, and there's going to be this huge trend about like neobanks coming in, stable coins. This is why there's just no way all this falls apart with the amount of institutions now coming in. There would have to be the most cataclysmic black swan event for me to see like a sustained bear period here. So there's too much going on, in my opinion, for that to happen. I do think it's interesting though, like coming away from that, and we've kind of seen this before. This is why I was talking about like non-KYC Binance trades, like Asta. This move away from just TradFi meets crypto now to this like original cypherpunk mentality is seen things like Zcash have a big run over the last few weeks. And I'm interested to see that thread, how it now continues. Like this idea of crypto is becoming a bit too mainstream for a lot of people. And I think there's going to be an interesting innovation back towards privacy, back towards maybe not always non-KYC, but just this kind of original, almost anti-establishment mentality around crypto, which I think will flourish again, but has been kind of sidestepped by all these, TradFi people coming in.
Yeah. Well said. Nice said. And by the way, we did have that situation, Mando, you spoke very highly of Asia being bullish, but we saw what happened in Vietnam, where they shut down 60 million bank accounts because they refused digital IDs or something like that. So that the Orwellian stuff is also happening in Asia. We now have Mexico. They'll arrest you if you post a meme. Also Orwellian, and that's just south of the border here. Bring the cartels back. It's wild. Marty, cheer us up.
Positive stuff. Let's just go very philosophical. We had the World Economic Forum, which tried to globalize the world using green energy and control and power. That failed. I think there's a new technocratic effort to globalize the world using technology. We see it with AI. We see it with crypto. I think it's happening. It's Gen X based. That's my generation. James, it's you. I think you guys too, right? Are you millennial, Mando? When are you born?
No, he's the baby.
Okay, but we have one foot in the past, one foot in the future. We're the bridge between the boomers and the millennials and the Gen Z. And I think you saw Larry Fink is the new WEF chair. I mean, it's happening. technology is going to be the new global unifier. Now, when you look at the word globalism, you get scared. Okay, we've been narrated that globalism is a frightening thing, but I think globalism is inevitable. Okay, with technology, it doesn't really matter where you live. You're looking at the same screen, looking at the same data, doing the same things. You're using the same money, global money, crypto. What does it matter where you're sitting? It's just literally the 1 inch where your ass is sitting. Well, who cares? So I think the positive note is this is happening. We have a better globalist agenda, a better globalist movement with technology. We're all comfortable with it. We can all invest in it. If you listen to us on the show, you're invested in that. Okay, you weren't really in green energy, but you should be in crypto. And so I'm very optimistic. I don't think it's going to be simple. I think there are going to be bumps in the road, but I definitely think the monetary system is converting to digital backed assets. And I think now we can see with the Ursula and news out of the EU, even that is flipping to AI based stuff. It's a technocratic takeover. And I'm very excited about it. You know, I live for this. I'm a computer scientist. I think this is our moment. So there we go. Be very optimistic and positive.
And be a capital allocator. Cheer us up, CTO. Final thought from you before we wrap.
Yeah, the positive thing here is that there's never been a better time ever in the history to take own control, like build your own assets. Government is not going to pay your pension in that. You have to figure it out yourself, take own control, get a laptop, start studying and build your own assets and think for yourself. There's never been a better time to do that because there's massive changes coming with crypto, with AI, with all the things that all of you talked about here. And it's happening. It's happening now. And in the biggest change is the biggest opportunity. And that is happening now. There's never been this rate of change. So now is the chance. Take it. And on top of that, market's looking great. So
exactly,
it's a great time to be alive. Then we can kind of feel upset on like a societal level, but park that on one side and then take action yourself for yourself and your family.
Take action. And brilliant, absolutely legendary team here. Don't forget to subscribe to everybody. Links below. I'm going to finish with a final note myself. The next 5 years will bring at least 50, maybe 100 years of change. So when you get 100 years of change or 50 years of change in 5 years, if you position yourself correctly, you will make more money than ever has been possible in the history of the world. That's what you need to sleep on when you go to bed at night. Anybody disagree with me?
No, $190 trillion transition, the greatest transition, wealth transition in history is just about to start. It started.
Wild.
Be part of it.
Stay healthy. Don't trust governments. Don't trust big pharma. Don't eat big food. And enjoy your bags. Live as long and healthy as you can. That's the message. Thank you, everybody. Great show. We're a strange show today, but this stuff has to be said because forewarned is forearmed as well. I'll be quiet now. Thank you all. Cheers.
What a legend. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
You too.